Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai
Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jai Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari
Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari
Jai Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari
Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari
Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana
Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana
Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana
Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana
Yamunatiravanachari
Natiravanachari
Yamunatiravanachari
Yamunatira Vanachari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Nitai Gora Haribo 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 Nitai Gora Haribo
Nitya Gaurav Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitya Gaurav Hari Bol
Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai
Rantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Nitai
Jai
Gaur Premanande Haribo.
Hari Hari Bol.
So thank you kindly for the invitation to speak again. It's been a few months. So normally I believe everybody reads this chapter beforehand, is that correct? Yeah. Okay, I can see you nodding. So what we'll do is we'll just read the summary and the translations of the chapter, and we'll speak a little bit, and if anyone's got any questions then we can discuss those. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 3, entitled Yamarāja Instructs His Messengers. As related in this chapter, the Yamadutas approached Yamarāja, who very exhaustively explained Bhagavad Dharma, the religious principle of devotional service. Yamarāja thus satisfied the Yamadutas, who had been very disappointed. Yamarāja said, although Ajamil was calling for his son, he chanted the holy name of the Lord Narayan. And simply by a glimpse of the chanting of the holy name, he immediately achieved the association of Lord Vishnu's order carriers, who saved him from the attempt to arrest him. This is quite all right. It is a fact that even a chronically sinful person who chants the holy name of the Lord, although not completely without offences, does not take another material birth. By chanting the holy name of the Lord, Ajamil had met 4 order carriers of Lord Vishnu. They were very beautiful and had quickly come to rescue him. Yamarāja now described them. The Vishnu Dutas are all pure devotees of the Lord, the Supreme Person, in regard to the creation, maintenance, annihilation of this cosmic manifestation. Neither King Indra, Varuna, Shiva, Brahma, the 7 rishis, nor I myself can understand the transcendental activities of the Supreme Lord, who is self-sufficient and beyond the reach of the material senses. With material senses, no one can attain enlightenment about him with a capital H. The Lord, the master of the illusory energy, possesses transcendental qualities for the good fortune of everyone, and his devotees are also qualified in that way. The devotees concerned only with rescuing the fallen souls from this material world apparently take birth in different places in the material world just to save the conditioned souls. If one is somewhat interested in spiritual life, the devotees of the Lord protect him in many ways. Yamarāja continued, the essence of Sanatana Dharma or eternal religion is extremely confidential. No one but the Lord himself can deliver the confidential religious system to human society. It is by the mercy of the Lord that the transcendental system of religion can be understood by his pure devotees, and specifically by the 12 Mahajans, Lord Brahma, Narada Muni, Lord Shiva, the Kumaras, Kapila, Manu, Prahlad, Janaka, Bhishma, Bali, Shukadev, Goswami, and me. Other learned scholars headed by Jaimini are almost always covered by the illusory energy, and therefore they are more or less attracted by the flowery language of the 3 Vedas, namely Rig, Rajur, and Sama, which are called Trayi. Instead of becoming pure devotees, people captivated by the flowery words of these 3 Vedas are interested in the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies. They cannot understand the glories of chanting the holy name of the Lord. Intelligent persons, however, take to the devotional service of the Lord. When they chant the holy name of the Lord without offences, they are no longer subject to my rulings. If by chance they commit some sinful act, they are protected by the holy name of the Lord, because that is where their interest lies. The 4 weapons of the Lord, especially the club and the Sudarshan chakra, always protect the devotees. One who chants, hears, or remembers the holy name of the Lord without duplicity or praise or offers obeisances to the Lord becomes perfect, whereas even a learned person may be called to hell if he is bereft of devotional service. After Yamarāja thus described the glories of the Lord and his devotees, Sukadeva Goswami further explained the potency of chanting the holy name and the futility of performing Vedic ritualistic ceremonies and pious activities for atonement. So that was the summary of this chapter 3 of the 6th canto. Now we could read the translations, but that will probably take us a good bit more. So we'll read just a few select verses. So first of all, text 1, King Parikshit said, O my Lord, Sukadeva Goswami, Yamarāja is the controller of all living entities in terms of the religious and irreligious activities, but his order has been foiled. When his servants, the Yamadutas, informed him of their defeat by the Vishnu Dutas who had stopped him from arresting Ajamil, what did he reply? So this was a very interesting inquiry. King Parikshit, he was very interested to hear, because generally if someone is sinful, like Ajamil, although he was born in a Brahmin family, and as we understand from the pages of Bhagavatam, that he was a very good Brahmin. But one time when he's performing his duties, by accident he came across 2 people who were enjoying some illicit sex in the forest. And although he tried to purify his mind, then his mind kept going back to that. It was some kind of negative meditation. Just like sometimes people say, oh, I'd like to learn how to meditate. But everybody's meditating. They're always thinking of something. They're meditating on their paycheck all week. They're thinking, okay, if I can just get some money, then I will enjoy. Or they're meditating on their upcoming holidays. So, but what are they going to meditate on? That's the thing. And of course, as devotees, we know that man mana bhavamad bhakto majiji mam namaskaru. If we think of Krishna, then we go to Krishna, become his devotee, and we become dear to him. Janma karma chame divyam evam yovati tatvataha takvideha panarjanma naitamamiti surjana. So one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving this body, take birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. So Krishna is saying, if we can just remember him, Srila Prabhupada told us, of all the regulative principles, the most important one is what? Sometimes if we ask this question, and we ask what's the most important one, then the devotees sometimes reveal how attached they are to one or the other principles, because they maybe mention that. But actually, the most important principle is always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. And everything else is to serve that purpose. So the various regulative principles we have, like we have the 4 regulative principles and 16 rounds, etc. And Prabhupada said of all these principles, then the chanting of the 16 rounds is most important. And we can see here that simply by even Namabasa, he wasn't chanting purposefully to attract the Lord. It was inadvertently he chanted, but because he was chanting in a helpless condition, then he attracted the attention of the Supreme Lord, and the Lord sent his servants, the Vishnudutas. So we can see how important it is to chant the holy name. Of course, we shouldn't think, oh, Ajamil, he was quite a rascal, because although he was a nice Brahmin, he was very simple and pure and very regulated. He got contaminated, and his mind went so that it was contaminated by this scene which he witnessed in the forest. And eventually he sought out that prostitute, married her, had children to her, and even when he was a very, very old man, he was still having children. He never took to Vanaprastha. But still, because he was able to remember the name of his son, Narayan, he was very much attached to his youngest son, and he called on the name of the son. But the Lord is so kind that even when we don't mean to serve him, he'll take that service. Just like Putana, she came with ill intention. She smeared poison on her breast, and she wanted to poison baby Krishna. And Krishna said, oh, here's my mother offering me some service. So he accepted the service. So this is always Krishna's mood, is he wants to benefit the living entities. Even if we're all like 100% rascals, and Krishna still Yada Dharmasya. Whenever there's a decline in religious principles or Pranitranaya Sadhunam, he will descend to establish dharmic principles, to annihilate the miscreants, or to remove the obstacles, and to give the devotees a chance once again. Sometimes the Lord will come himself, and sometimes he'll send his devotees. So just like when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we just celebrated Gaura Purnima. So when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came 500 years ago, or 539 to be exact, then he brought the Yuga Dharma, the chanting of the holy name of the Lord, and he showed how to be a devotee of the highest order. And he personally spread the chanting. He converted many people to become Vaishnavas, from Mayavadis, Buddhists, etc. And it was at a time also in India where the Muslims were ruling India. So there's many challenges there. So the Lord also came to show that we shouldn't become put off by any challenges, and nothing can stop this Sankirtan movement. So, but after some time, just a few generations, then people started presenting the teachings of Lord Chaitanya in an unauthorized way, and they became degraded and they became sensuous. And then so many different Sahaja groups sprung up from what was originally pure Vaishnavism. So many pretenders, people who take it cheaply, who don't follow the path properly. Mahajana Yenagata Sapanta, that were recommended to follow in the footsteps of the previous acharyas, the Mahajans. Sometimes Prabhupada would say to follow in the footprints, just like sometimes if you're in a treacherous terrain, it may be very muddy, or it may be snow, or if you're walking on ice, then if someone's in front of you and their footprints are there to see, and you see, okay, well, their footprints are steady, they haven't slipped, you just put your foot exactly where their feet were, and then you know you're okay. So Prabhupada makes it very precise, following the footprints of the previous acharyas. But if we don't do that, if we make a small deviation, just like if you're traveling in a straight line, if you take 1 degree off of that straight line, then in due course of time, that 1 degree is going to be quite a different destination from the original intended destination. Say if you were to mark a trajectory from here to the moon, and that was the line that you were to go to travel to get there. But if you were to go 1 degree off, you would miss it by quite a few miles by the time you travel that distance. So if we make some change, Prabhupada was very careful. He said that his only qualification is that he never changed anything. So that's a lesson for us, that take what he's giving and don't change it. Don't add to it, don't subtract from it, don't concoct something. Prabhupada was very keen to emphasize not to concoct. And he was very keen to protect the devotees because he'd very carefully selected all the different verses in the Shastras which he gave for the devotees in this material world in Kali Yuga. And he cautioned the devotees not to hear outside of ISKCON, because he also said if they say one word different, everything will be spoiled. So of course we can spread Krishna consciousness by repeating verbatim, but Prabhupada also encouraged us to speak in our own words, as long as the essence remains true. That's the main thing. So Ajamil, he found himself in a very difficult position, that he had led a very sinful life, and now the Yamadutas were coming to take him for his due punishment. But because he had inadvertently chanted the holy name of the Lord, then the Lord, he sent his devotees to come and rescue him. So as we were saying, when Lord Chaitanya's mission became somewhat covered by the unauthorized persons, then Bhaktivinoda Thakur and the Guru Parampara was still there, but it became popular to follow some deviant sects. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he very clearly and strongly re-established Gaudiya Vaishnavism, so much so that he regained a good reputation for Gaudiya Vaishnavism. And then he prayed to the Lord for a son who would continue this mission. He was praying for a ray of Vishnu. And of course, that person was Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur. And then, of course, his glorious disciple, Srila Prabhupada, on the first meeting, he gave him his life mission, and Prabhupada took it seriously. And Prabhupada had seen in his own home his father, Gaur Mohan De. He was also a pure devotee, and he was very kind to everyone. So even when bogus sadhus would come, he would still serve them, but not that he would accept them. But so Prabhupada said, when he grew up, then he said he'd seen so many so-called sadhus, so he was a bit skeptical. His friend took him to meet his Guru Maharaj. And but after he'd met him, then his comment was, I met a very nice saintly person. So Prabhupada's life was changed at that point. Of course, from our point of view, we're seeing these great acharyas as being just exactly what's being said here. That let's see if I can find it. Yeah, no one but the Lord himself can deliver the confidential religious system to human society. It is by the mercy of the Lord that the transcendental system of religion can be understood by its pure devotees, and specifically by 12 Mahajans. So sometimes the Lord comes, and sometimes the devotees come, and their purpose is once again to try to reclaim the devotees of the Lord. I'd just like to read a little bit from the Nectar of Instruction, where Prabhupada speaks about atonement. Prashchitam ato partam manye kunjara shocha sochavat. He compared atonement to an elephant's bathing. So this is Maharaj Parikshit here. This is in the previous chapter, Srimad Bhagavatam, first chapter of 6th Canto. Parikshit Maharaj was asking about atonement. And this has been compared to elephant bathing. We all know the story, the Hathi Snan. The elephant, it takes such great trouble to bathe very nicely, and then once it comes out, then it rolls about in the dirt again. So this is sometimes the nature of the living entities, is that when they become purified, they don't feel so comfortable in this purified state. Sometimes may even feel somewhat vulnerable. So then they roll about in the dirt of karmic action once again, or sense gratification. So Prabhupada said that this is our second nature. It's second nature for the conditioned soul to engage in unbeneficial works, to engage in sensual activity, or to engage in sense gratification, activities which are not connected to Krishna. It's second nature. But that is the clue there. It's second nature, it's not our first nature. Our first nature is Jivera Swarupahai Krishnera Nityadas, Krishnera Tatasta Shakti Beda Beda Prakash. So Sanatana Goswami, he asked Lord Chaitanya, Kiane Kane Amaya Jari Tapatra Ihana Jani Kiamana Hitahai. Who am I? Why am I suffering the threefold miseries, and how can I be benefited? So this is where Lord Chaitanya says, Jivera Swarupahai. You're eternal servant of Krishna. Krishnera Nityadas. Krishnera Tatasta Shakti. You are of the Tatasta Shakti. We have the Apara Prakriti, which is the inferior energy, and we have the Para Prakriti, which is the spirit energy, and we are situated between both. But we are of the spiritual nature. If we Here, Srila Prabhupada giving a purport to the Mahamantra. Then he says that the living entity in the material world is an incompatible situation. We are spirit, and we're trying to lord it over, and we're trying to enjoy matter. But this is foreign for us. We have become conditioned and accustomed to this, but actually it doesn't give us the pleasure we're looking for. So Lord Chaitanya, he gave us the Shikshastakam, and those teachings, all of his teachings are there, and basically it's all about chanting the holy name. When we chant the holy name, when we read Shastra, then our consciousness is purified so we understand it. If we simply try to be a scholar of the Shastras, then that won't save us. This is mentioned here also. That one who chants, hears, or remembers the holy name of the Lord without duplicity, or who prays or offers obeisances to the Lord becomes perfect, whereas even a learned person may be called to hell if he is bereft of devotional service. So there's a verse in the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna talks about this. Neha bikramuna sosti pratyavayana vidyate swapam apyasadam sya trayate mahtobayat. That this devotional service is so powerful that even a little advancement, a little service can protect us from the most dangerous type of fear. And in the purport to that verse, Srila Prabhupada explains that the most dangerous type of fear is to fall back again into the animal species, the samsara, the cycle of birth and death, in the lower species, because that is such a fearful place to be. The living entities there, they're not free, and it's it's a very much a suffering condition for the soul to be in. So when the elephant takes the bath and rolls about in the dirt, this is considered to be, he mentions, just like certain Christians go to church, confess their sins, thinking that confessing their sins before a priest and performing some penance will relieve them from the results of their weekly sins. As soon as Saturday is over and Sunday comes, they again begin their sinful activities, expecting to be forgiven the next Saturday. This kind of prayaschita, or atonement, is condemned by Parikshit Maharaj, the most intelligent king of his time. Sukadeva Goswami, equally intelligent as befitting the spiritual master of Maharaj Parikshit, answered the king and confirmed that his statement concerning atonement was correct. A sinful activity cannot be counteracted by a pious activity. Sometimes people have this conception that at the end of life, then the scales will be balanced to see, did you do more good or more bad? And if you did more good, then you're going up. And if you did more bad, then you're going down. But actually, the law of karma says that for every action, you get a reaction. So for the good, you get the rewards, and for the bad, you get the punishment. So it's not necessarily like if you get done for speeding, right? If you're caught speeding, then you can't say, well, I was in a 50-mile-an-hour zone and I was only doing 30 the other day, so maybe it all evens out. No, it doesn't work like that. You don't get any credit for doing 30 in a 50-mile-an-hour zone, but if you do 50 in a 30 zone, you get the punishment. So material nature is set up to act according to our actions. It will give us the reactions, and basically we're creating our own futures. In this sense, we are the controller of our destiny. We have that freedom. The real prashchita atonement is awakening of our dormant Krishna consciousness. So this is mentioned here in text 1 of the Nectar of Instruction. Real atonement involves coming to real knowledge, and for this there is a standard process. When one follows a regulated hygiene process, it does not fall sick. A human being is meant to be trained according to certain principles to revive his original knowledge. Such a methodical life is described as tapasya. So this voluntary accepting of tapasya I was listening to one lecture by Shiv Swami the other day, and he said that even in material life, one cannot achieve anything without discipline. So why should we expect anything less for the highest goal? And the highest goal is Prema Pumarta Mahan. We're not simply looking just to be relieved from our sins or to get some pious reactions for an improved life the next time round. We're not simply just looking for mukti, liberation, because we're tired of this material world, but we're actually looking to develop love of Krishna. This is what's been offered. It's the highest being offered in Kali Yuga to the lowest of us. So this is explained in the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the science of devotional service. And Krishna, he's trying to make access available to everybody at whatever level they're at. If one is on a very low level, then he says, okay, you can do this for me. Just think about me. And then there's higher levels, but then he says, better than that is this, so we have to do the best we can, but not just be satisfied to remain there. Devotional service is not a static thing. We can't just find our level. Sometimes we have this saying, well, I'll just find my level and I'll just be okay at that. But this is what a glider tries to do. The Prabhupada explains about this gliding, that so perhaps if Ajamil had got the right association and taken to the chanting of the holy name and taken his mind to Krishna instead of going back to seeing the lusty scene which he witnessed, then perhaps he wouldn't have went through this trouble. But this is a great lesson for us anyway. As we know, he got a second chance. But this chanting of the holy name is feared by fear personified. When one chants the holy name of the Lord is personally present there, and he's very happy. It's mentioned that when the conditioned soul chants the holy name, then he dances on their tongue. And when we listen to it, then he starts to enter into the heart. And when the heart is purified, then the Lord is dancing in the heart of the living entity. So because Krishna actually very much wants us to come back to him to enjoy eternally, then either he himself or he sends his representatives to us. And we're all very fortunate because tonight we're discussing the words of the pure devotees, the words of the Lord. And we're all going about our daily activities, but every day we're all chanting Hare Krishna, taking prasad. We're engaged in this wonderful process of cleansing the heart. But we shouldn't become complacent. And Krishna's kindness is that he won't allow us to become complacent. Sometimes he'll create some trouble so that we don't become complacent because he loves us too much to allow us to remain in the material world. When we make some steps towards him, then he'll make arrangements that we continue with that. Yeah, so Prabhupada was talking about this glider that takes so much effort to take a glider airplane up high into the sky, and then it's released, and it looks like it's flying, but gradually it's just coming down lower, 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 and then finally it crashes or comes back down to earth again. So we have to continue with the devotional service. That we shouldn't come to the point thinking, okay, I've done enough for this life. No, we know we've done enough when we're back home in the spiritual world, seeing Krishna face to face. And Prabhupada said that Krishna is ready to meet us, but we have to ready ourselves. He's willing. We just have to be preparing ourselves. So, and that preparation begins with what Ajamil has done here, is chanting the holy name of the Lord. And we see that after this association of the Yamadutas and the Vishnudutas, then he was given a special opportunity to purify himself, and then he went back to Godhead. So until then, the Yamadutas, they had not encountered this situation. But this is to show you how powerful the holy name of the Lord is. But we should be careful that don't think that the holy name is so powerful, then I can commit the seventh offense against the holy name, which is to commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting. It's true that Krishna is so powerful. So Krishna is Ajita, which means he cannot be conquered by anything or anyone. So he cannot be conquered by any amount of sinful activity. It's not that the weight of the sins of the world would weigh him down and then he becomes subdued by that. That would mean that there's something superior to him. So as we know, he's Ajita. He's unconquerable. So and because his name and his form and himself are non-different, then when we chant Krishna's name, then Krishna is personally present. But we shouldn't think, okay, now that I can become purified by chanting, then I can just roll about in the dirt like the elephant and then chant. Or even roll about in the dirt like an elephant while I'm chanting. So we have to be mindful that Krishna is a person and not to disrespect Krishna like that. So Krishna has given us a great gift in the form of his holy name. And this is what the beauty of Kali Yuga is. Sometimes it's considered that Kali Yuga is such a fallen age, but sometimes the great sages and the Goswamis, they say that Kali Yuga is the most glorious of ages. And why is that? Because simply Kali Dosha Nidirajan, and although Kali Yuga is an ocean of faults, that simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord, Mukta Sangha Param Vrajet, one can be promoted to the kingdom of God. So therefore, even if we find ourselves getting caught up in Maya, then simply just get back on the horse. There's a story of the horse race, and the boy who kept falling off his horse, he was last to come in. Everybody else had already came and gone, and he was very much later than the rest. He wasn't very good, but he wanted to do the race. But he kept falling off the horse. But better than that, he kept going back on the horse, and then finally he crossed the finishing line, and he was welcomed. So tumultuous applause. So this can be likened to us. This divine energy of mind, Krishna says, is very difficult to overcome. But one who is surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. So sometimes we forget to take shelter of Krishna, but when we remember, then we again take shelter of Krishna, and gradually this becomes our go-to place. So all these little opportunities we have every day in life, opportunities to remain respectful to devotees, to remain respectful to even the non-devotees. The six Goswamis were popular with the gentle and with the ruffians because they were respectful. They respected them as part and parcels of the Lord, as jivas, as servants of the Lord. They seen through their temporary designation. So with our family members too, we shouldn't be disrespectful. We should remember they're also devotees. Whether they are accepting devotional service or not, then still they are devotees. And whatever we do as a devotee or aspiring devotee can bring them closer to Krishna. So this process of chanting Hare Krishna is also spoken about in the Nectar of Instruction, that in the beginning it might not taste so sweet, and we may still have the attraction for material life. That may be stronger. But don't forget what Krishna says, that in the material world, pleasure in the material world is like nectar in the beginning, but it becomes like poison in the end. How many people are taking to various intoxicants, drugs, etc., and it seems to be giving them such a great high. Just like recently, just less than 2 weeks ago, there's one person known to us here in Scotland who visited the temple, who'd even been to Bhaktivedanta Manor, etc., and the person accidentally took an overdose. The person was in and out of Krishna consciousness, intended to be a devotee, but just had a very troubled past, holding on to Krishna consciousness. So we, it's a very risky thing. Padam padam yad vi padam. Every step in this material world is danger. Even trying to be a devotee, who knows if what kind of danger may be there. But we must always have a resort to Krishna. So every day we're getting little tests to tolerate, to be patient, to be kind, to be mindful of others, and to take shelter in Krishna ultimately in all situations. So that ultimately at the time of death, our natural recourse of taking shelter is in Krishna, not that we take shelter in some mundane thing. So we may begin with our devotional endeavors with an attachment to material life, but gradually, by keep on diverting our attention to Krishna, then Bhogashvaya Prasaktanam, then this attachment to Bhoga and Aishwarya, or sense enjoyment and opulence, then that will diminish, because Krishna, he is the reservoir of all this Bhoga and Aishwarya. And whatever we can get in the material world is only a dim reflection of what is available through Krishna. So happiness in spiritual life sometimes seems like poison in the beginning and is like nectar in the end. And just like Rupa Goswami says in the Nectar of Instruction, that although one who is afflicted by the jaundice of avidya, or in other words, one who's in Maya, when we try to take to the chanting, then it may not seem so pleasurable at first. But gradually, when one who is jaundiced, if they take sugar candy, then gradually it tastes sweet. And when it tastes sweet, then you know the disease is gone. So we have faith in Guru, faith in the devotees, faith in the Shastra, that by continuing this process, then I will get the desired result. Krishna explains this in the Gita. Many, many persons in the past became purified by knowledge of me and thus attained transcendental love for me. Vitaraga bhaya krodha, becoming free from attachment, fear, and anger. So if we're experiencing attachment, fear, or anger, then we simply develop attachment for Krishna and become fearful of being involved in Maya. And our anger can be dovetailed towards protecting this message of Krishna consciousness and preserving that. So in Kali Yuga, we cannot estimate the great fortune of the living entities which has come about by this Krishna consciousness movement. Sometimes we go out preaching, we may go in Harinam, or may go in book distribution, and we may not get what we think is a good result. We might think we only did 1 or 2 books, or there wasn't many people in Harinam. But that's not necessarily the sign of a poor result. If one person is there who hears the holy name, their life has changed. One person gets a book, then that's a great result for them. That could be the most important thing that's happened to them for many, many births. So just like Ajamil couldn't estimate the great fortune he just achieved by chanting his son's name in desperation, then we cannot estimate our own good fortune, which has been brought to us by Srila Prabhupada's books. And there's many people out there also who are ready for that great fortune. One time I was in Mayapur and I heard a devotee giving class, and they said that the living entities are sitting, rotting in material existence, and they're just wondering when is Lord Chaitanya going to come down my street and save me? So all these little ajamios who are out there, there's a few billion of them on the planet. Then by us getting out of our comfort zone and going out, chanting, giving out books, going door to door, going on the street with a Harinam party, or doing some service to support the Sankirtan movement, then we're doing a great service, the best, the upakar, sarva upakar, of all the great works one can do. Then serving this mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the most fortunate thing we could ever find ourselves to do. And for that, Lord Chaitanya will reward us beyond what we can imagine. Lord Chaitanya's anxiety is for the living entities' redemption, and we can relieve that anxiety. Just imagine if Lord Chaitanya came into your house and said, I've got a sore head, a headache, can you give me a head massage? We'd be thinking, well, this is amazing, can't believe my good luck. But this is what we do when we go out to spread this Krishna consciousness movement, take ourselves out of our comfort zone to go and face the other living entities and try to bring Krishna consciousness to them, or in some way or another share Krishna consciousness. It could be sometimes you take some prasadam from the temple to your workplace and you give it to your friends at work. And this is amazing. Immediately they want to get a human birth again. So much good fortune by this Krishna conscious movement that all the little ajamios which are suffering out there, they're being saved by this mercy of Lord Chaitanya. So I think we'll probably just stop there and ask if anyone's got any questions or comments.
Okay, thank you very much, Prabhu. If anyone has any questions, please raise your hand and I'll call you out. If I can start off by asking, you talked about challenges and you talked about the development of love for Krishna. How do we, as a movement, as an individual, not make the chanting of the holy name just ritualistic? So how do we develop that love for Krishna?
So in the beginning, it might be a bit ritualistic. And Prabhupada explains this, that sadhana bhakti means that we engage as if by force. So it means we read the books and we come to the conclusion that this makes sense, I'm going to take to this. And we may not yet get a taste for it, but sometimes we do get a little taste as well. Krishna may give us a little taste, so we know that there's something there. Or sometimes in kirtan, Prabhupada mentions that kirtan is the safest place in the universe. So that combined effort of everyone chanting together, then sometimes we feel very uplifted by that. But if we have faith that by chanting the holy name of the Lord, and we continue to do that faithfully every day, then gradually we'll begin to experience. We may not experience so much bliss from it, but we'll start to experience, first of all, the shackles of attachment loosening. So, for example, some things you thought you could never give up, you take to the chanting process and you look back and you think, well, where's that gone? I've left that behind. It's just like you're climbing up a steep hill and you're looking forward one step at a time, but you're not seeing how far up you're going until you stop and you look down. So this is the situation for the devotees. Many times they think, oh, I'm not getting anywhere. But if you just take stock and think, well, what was I doing this time last year, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, however long it is? You were doing things as a devotee you wouldn't dream of doing now. So to begin with, we have to, sadhana means that we engage in regulated devotional service, and we have to chant, and we have to get up early, we have to follow these principles, etc. It mentions also that when one becomes spontaneous, one becomes pure devotee, then one doesn't have to follow the rules and regulations. But that doesn't mean to say you throw them out the window. What it means is In the beginning, you have to do it because you need to do it. But later on, when you're purified, you don't have to do it. You just do it automatically. You just follow them automatically. So it's just like perhaps a criminal. If they want to get free from jail, if say they've been sentenced, then they have to behave themselves. And they behave themselves, then they're up for parole, they get a good chance of getting out. But once they learn to behave themselves and that becomes a good habit, then it just becomes nature again. So we have to be patient. Srila Rupa Goswami explains once again in the Nectar of Devotion things which are conducive for progress in spiritual life, and one of them is patience. We have to be patient. In Kali Yuga, there's so much influence of the mode of passion that we think, oh, I've not got time for patience, I want it now. But that's just like maybe the child sees the mother pregnant. Or no, a better analogy would be that sometimes, no offense against any of the ladies here, I don't know if you've ever experienced it, but Prabhupada gives the example that the husband and wife get married and she wants a child immediately, but she's going to have to wait at least 9 months. Or sometimes the child sees the mother's pregnant and thinks, well, I want to be like that too, but she has to wait until she's old enough to get married and then have children. So we have to be patient and just carry on faithfully. And the Lord Brahma says that one who patiently accepts the good and bad reactions of their past pious and impious deeds, and one who patiently accepts that, and all the while continuing with their devotional service, ultimately, then pure love of God becomes their rightful claim. So love of God is contained within the Mahamantra, and if we follow the regulative principles, now the regulative principles are not there just to make life difficult for us, because, Krishna likes to see us struggling or something like that, but they're known as the regulative principles of freedom. Just once again, if one is in jail and you want to get free from that jail, then the guidelines you have to follow are the guidelines which are going to lead to your freedom. So there may be a little restriction there because we're accustomed to breaking the law. But if we start to abide by the law, then Krishna will trust us and he'll welcome us back again. So love of God is already inherent within the living entity, just like within wood, fire is within the wood. And if that wood comes in contact with with a fire, then it will become fire also. So similarly with us, Jese Sangha Vese Ranga, when we associate with a devotee, we become like a devotee. So it's very important to keep good association. And so that can be through associating with devotees, through associating via Shastra. And Satatam Kirtayandamam, Krishna says, just always chant my name. So in this way, we're always keeping connected to the spiritual energy. And the more we endeavor, then the sooner we will get there. And this is why it says that the only requirement for love of God is greed for it. So that greed means that we're always looking of ways how to make our daily life more Krishna conscious. So the more we put Krishna into our life, then the more that dormant love of God will be rekindled and it will come out naturally again. So I hope that's okay.
Yes, thank you very much, Prabhu. Just noted something on the chat. We've got Jay Mataji, Jolly Mataji, I believe. Would you like to unmute and ask your Mataji? Would you like to unmute?
Yeah, is that you mentioned tapasya? So I'm wondering that Prabhupada didn't put too much emphasis on performing too many austerities. So what tapasya should we be doing?
Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you, Prabhu. So the Prabhupada said that too much austerity makes one hard-hearted or proud, because sometimes people will be proud of their austerities. We may be coming to Krishna consciousness for one reason or another, but then we become proud beforehand we didn't know anything, and then we learned something, and then we started to kind of jostle for position, thinking that we're better than someone or someone's greater than ourselves. Now, tapasya, we shouldn't accept any unnecessary tapasya. I'll give a couple of examples. There was one devotee who was relaying messages about this other disciple of Prabhupada who had decided to chant more rounds. And then he said, oh, he's chanting 32 rounds a day. And Prabhupada didn't really comment. And then later on he says, well, now he's chanting 64. Now he wants to chant 64 rounds. And now he wants to live under a tree and chant 64 rounds. And Prabhupada says, I want, this is sense gratification. So this person was thinking that by doing this, then he was becoming greatly advanced, but he didn't ask his spiritual master. He wanted to do it. So it was a personal desire. But what if his spiritual master wanted to do something else? And there was one occasion where some devotees they were practicing such unnecessary austerities, and Prabhupada says, why don't you put glass in your shoe? If you want austerity, put glass in your shoe. So, of course, Prabhupada's humor really brought the point. It's like such unnecessary austerities are there. You know, it's like, I remember doing book distribution in one town in Scotland, and it was in the winter, and one person, I was distributing a book called Perfection of Yoga, and one very puffed up so-called yoga practitioner came up and said, well, you're not yogis. If you were yogis, you wouldn't be wearing shoes. And I thought, it was such a foolish statement, such a misunderstanding of yoga, to think that we have to perform these unnecessary tapasyas. But the tapasya we accept is just what comes unsolicited in the course of our performing our devotional service. So, for example, some days you get up out of bed and you go to chant, but your mind doesn't want to get out of bed, or your mind doesn't want to chant. You want to do something else, but the tapasya is you just say, no, I'm going to do this, whether you feel like it or whether you don't. Or if you have some other service to do, you know, or maybe you're back from work and you're hungry and you can't be bothered offering, you just think, no, I'm going to do this. This is the tapasya. So whatever, or if we're doing some preaching program, there may be some challenges getting there. This is the tapasya, but we don't go out of our way to look for tapasya. And there was another occasion when Hari Sori Prabhu, the personal servant of Srila Prabhupada at one time, there was a program which we'd arranged for Prabhupada to go to, but he became sick, and Hari Sori Prabhu was trying to take care of Prabhupada by telling him, don't go to the program, someone else can do it. And he says, no, I want to go. He says, no, but Prabhupada, you're sick. You know, it's too austere. And Prabhupada said, preaching means austerity. So sometimes it does mean that. Sometimes we have some austerities, but sometimes preaching doesn't mean austerity, it means chanting, dancing, and feasting. So the austerities, Prabhupada basically said that the austerities we accept are that which is encountered in our normal discharge of devotional service. So it's austere enough trying to follow the four regulative principles in a world which is full of distractions. It's austere enough trying to get the mind to surrender to hear attentively 16 rounds every day. We don't need to go out of our way to find other austerities. Is that okay, Prabhu?
Thank you for the answer, Prabhu. Yes, thank you.